Well, thank you for joining us again. Well, we'll delve into the critical issue of energy investment in the Niger Delta region. Bayo Ojulari, the new group CEO of NNPCL, has emphasized Nigeria's urgent need to craft a bankable energy narrative, one that attracts global capital while meeting environmental, social, and governance standards. We want to know, what does this mean for investors, communities, and sustainability in the Niger Delta? To unpack this, we are joined by a senior energy expert and consultant, Dr. Wisdom Enang. He joins us virtually. You're welcome, Dr. Enang, on Niger Delta today.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Wisdom.
Well,
thank you very much.
Ojulari speaks of a bankable approach for the energy sector in Nigeria and indeed the Niger Delta region. What does he mean when he says that? And when you appraise the energy sector currently, since the President Bola Tinubu took over the helm of affairs, would you say that the energy sector is still as attractive as ever? Or are there still tasks that need to go into ensuring that this sector blooms as much as possible?
Okay, thank you very much. I think, the sector has witnessed a dramatic, improvement since the coming on board of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I think that's a very laudable thing, because this comes at a time where we needed that change, and at a time where we were provided with the regulatory enabler from the Petroleum Industry Act. So that's a good one. Now, the areas that we need to do to build on what the president has achieved so far is to open up the downstream and the midstream sectors. Because what we're doing at the moment is really harnessing 15% of value, which is gotten through, getting the crude oil exported. We still have a lot of possibilities. And let me just say this, that ever since the president got on board, the improvements have been enormous, and those have been enabled through a number of initiatives. First is the operationalization of the Petroleum Industry Act. Second is the bringing on board of several presidential directives that has given strengthened fiscal terms for that enables investment. So those have been able to encourage investors to come on board and invest in the various assets that Nigeria has in the petroleum sector. And also, one of the encouraging things that has boosted Nigeria's petroleum sector in recent times is the way and manner the divestments have been handled, in such a way that it conforms to the Petroleum Industry Act, but also serves the interest of all stakeholders. I think those are very laudable things. But for us to take it from here, we need, first and foremost, to improve further our fiscal terms. We also need to be able to showcase the assets that we have. By that I mean, we do have a number of currently the wells that Nigeria is holding is producing wells are wells that were discovered in the 1980s. Most of those assets were recovered in the 1980s through exploration. So we need to deepen our exploration to be able to characterize and discover new prolific wells that has the volume, and then that we can have investors come in and take over and develop for us.
All right, Dr. Wisdom, a significant portion of the nation's energy comes from the Niger Delta region. What is the place of the Niger Delta region when it comes to energy production, distribution, and otherwise? And what are those challenges hindering, energy generation and accessibility in the Niger Delta region?
Okay, yes, you are right. The Niger Delta region, accounts for Nigeria's crude production, and definitely has I think the wealth of the nation is embedded within the Niger Delta region. But there are some gains that we have made as a region, but there are also some opportunities for further improvement. When we're talking about gains, we are talking about, the fact that we have been able to establish as an authority in the oil and gas sector, but mainly from the upstream side of things. But the same cannot be said in terms of establishing a market for the petroleum sector, downstream gas and midstream. We haven't been able to achieve that. And that's something we need to achieve, because right now, if you look at the AKK pipeline, for example, what it says, the AKK pipeline simply tells us that gas is going to be commingled from the Niger Delta all the way through the AKK up into the northern side, where Jakarta, Kaduna, and the rest, around that corridor, there's going to be a gas market established. So we need to establish a gas market down south. Yes, we have the petrochemical side in Rivers State, but for the most part, in other areas of the Niger Delta, there's still that opportunity. And without doing that, if we do not start consuming the energy we produce, then we cannot industrialize, because industrialization can only be realized when we start consuming that energy and using that energy to innovate and then produce. So those are the areas that we think we can do differently. The other area that we think can be done differently is how we handle environmental issues, and host community issues. Those are very key areas that have been provisioned for by the Petroleum Industry Act, but we need to start taking seriously so that we can start getting the benefits of being an oil producer down to that region in a maximum manner.
All right, Dr. Enang. Well, auxiliary, the NNPCL boss, also speaks of governance, strengthening infrastructure, clearer contracts, and better regulatory frameworks. When you look at the Niger Delta region, what are those gaps that you see are very visible? And do you think that there are specific steps that can be taken towards plugging those gaps to prevent the losses that are witnessed within the sector?
Well, within the Niger Delta as a region, there's definitely need for us to go back and look at, upgrade of the facilities, the oil and gas facilities down there, because a lot of the potential production that we can get have been hampered by outdated facilities. So definitely, one way to boost that would be to go on a sort of turnaround, maintenance on some of those old assets, and get them to start flowing across. I think that's one thing that we need to do. Then the other issue is the issue of crude theft. Right now, the government has handled that to a point where we only get about 5,000 barrels per day worth of losses. But definitely there is room for deployment of technology. There's room for better synergy across the stakeholders, the host community, the security personnel, even the lawmakers. There's room for that sort of improvement, which will further help us to get to a point where we can, in fact, be able to get a better outcome from our oil and gas sector. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to deepen investments in the petroleum sector. And laudably so, I have seen what the NNPCL and GSEN have done with the $3.5 billion MOU signed with the Akwa Ibom State government. That shows that there's very serious plans to expand and begin to develop other what I would call the secondary and the tertiary sectors away from the oil and gas, because by the time we do the gas sectors, we'll have to get on to do manufacturing. By the time we do manufacturing, we'll have to do the service industries to serve all of them. So that is like producing the secondary and tertiary linkages. So I see what the federal government is already doing with the presidential initiatives of CNG. Those are the right things. We just need them to be done faster and in a more effective way.
All right, Doctor, aside from the crude and gas resources in terms of energy that we have in the Niger Delta region, the world is actually transiting to renewable energy. What are those modalities we should put in place to ensure that we transit alongside the global community in terms of energy?
Okay, so the first thing I think we need to consider to be able to have an effective transition are key terms like having a just transition. Recognizes that we produce as a continent only 4% of the emissions that are produced globally, and that most African countries, including Nigeria, have what we call energy poverty. So a just transition is saying, can we use a cleaner form of petroleum energy, which is gas, to be able to power our transition, realities up to a point where we can transit fully to a cleaner form of fuel. Then the second bit is to ensure that when you're looking at energy transition, you are also trying to understand where the various energy, the various types of energy play in the ecosystem. For example, in Nigeria, we have the central grid. Those that are connected to the central grid, and those that are within the decentralized areas where they're not connected to the central grid. So the most logical thing to do right now might not be building, transmission infrastructure to the areas where there are decentralized grid. It might be too expensive. And also the central grid is overpowered. I mean, we are producing less than we require, much less than we require. What the answer may be would be to say, okay, let's use the gas-powered facilities for the central grid so that we're even using an efficient form of fuel. But away from that, let's now build, within the decentralized grid system, let's build renewable energy to power the decentralized grid. And that makes sense because the decentralized areas do not really need that much energy. They don't have like industrial needs for energy. They just need it for basic things, and they need reliable energy. So that's a way to balance both. So for us to be able to catch up with the energy transition story, we have to deploy a just transition strategy and a strategy that would maximize the use of gas for centralized, turbines, and for the decentralized folks who use, renewable energy.
All right, Dr. Wisdom Enang, Senior Energy Expert and Consultant, thank you very much for speaking with us in Niger Delta today. That will be where we'd leave it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wisdom, for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the size of Niger Delta today. Well, thank you for sticking around with us up until this moment. We'll catch us again for another fresh edition of Niger Delta Today. My name is Xavier Roberts. Do have a terrific afternoon.
And as usual, I'm Stephen Ode. Good afternoon.